was a large-scale Russian military invasion of Ukraine involving some 130,000 military personnel, mainly from the 20th and 8th Combined Armies. Paratroopers from the 76th and 98th Air Assault Divisions crossed the Ukrainian border from the north, towards Kharkiv. From the southeast, units including the 7th and 106th Air Assault Divisions moved to capture all of the already partially occupied territory of Donetsk and Luhansk, and then moved west as far as the outskirts of Dnipro, another major city. A smaller Special Operations Unit Spetsnaz was also deployed. The railroads leading to the Ukrainian border hindered full deployment, but still, the advancing units were followed in rolling waves by several regiments, with thousands of troops over the next 10 days. Result: confiscation of part of Ukraine for inclusion in the Russian state. The scenario, published more than 18 months ago, is part of a war game conducted by the RAND Corporation, a U.S. think tank. While not a comprehensive analysis, it is a snapshot of Russia's military capabilities in eastern Ukraine, where in fact, just across the border, as many as 175,000 Russian troops may be amassed in the coming weeks. And while the RAND reporter and more recent military analyses have examined Russia's operational tactics, far fewer have seen the other side of the coin. How long can Ukraine's armed forces hold out against a bigger and more powerful military force like Russia? Russia will find them a steadfast, strong and durable army, whatever Putin chooses to do. The threats have been going on for 8 years. We haven't ruled this out since 2014. This is war, this is Russia. Russia should be expected to exploit any situation at all times. War broke out in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region in April 2014, just months after months of street protests in Kyiv erupted in violent police clashes. It led to the overthrow of the president of a Moscow-friendly country, who fled to Russia. In the months that followed, Kyiv's Operation Counterterrorism, a mix of government forces and volunteer militia, often privately funded, had early success against Kremlin-backed separatist forces. By the end of the summer, however, Russia had ramped up its deployment of unmarked military intelligence and even its regular troops, resulting in several heavy losses for Ukrainian forces, including one in the city of Ilovaisk that August. The losses highlight the weak state of Ukraine's military, which has been plagued by years of underfunding and corruption. Problems include outdated equipment, new equipment being sold for bribes, officers being forced to cover their meager salaries with outside business deals, and vehicles and helicopters running short of fuel or spare parts. Ukrainian children hold a cake sale to raise money for the troops. Our troops have been systematically destroyed and disarmed, and their best personnel laid off, Deputy Defense Minister Petro Med told reporters in April 2014. Since then, Ukraine's military has stepped up, though experts disagree on how broad and deep it would be, and how likely it is when a country is technically still at war. Burdened with aging Soviet arsenal and obsolete equipment, Ukraine has sought to upgrade its arsenal, and the United States has been the single largest supplier of lethal and non-lethal weapons for the past 7 years. The aid, totaling more than $2.5 billion, includes such things as counter-artillery radar, drones, flak jackets, night vision goggles, and armed patrol boats. It also includes the Advanced Javelin anti-tank missile, which could potentially give Ukrainian forces a small battlefield advantage against Russian tanks. In November, the United States delivered about 88 tons of munitions, including nearly 3 dozen Javelin launchers, and 180 missiles. The new defense budget passed by Congress this week includes $300 million for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. Along with other NATO officers, the United States is also trying to increase training for Ukrainian troops. More than 150 soldiers from the Florida National Guard's 53rd Infantry Brigade Combat Team are currently in the country. The big challenge as we see it is not military but political. There is little belief in this country that the president, as commander-in-chief of the armed forces and his government, is as prepared, wise, and strong as the army and the general population. A lot will depend on what type of attack will be carried out. Russian President Vladimir Putin decided to follow suit. There is no desire in the country to give up politically. The Ukrainian military is now estimated to have a total of around 145,000 to 150,000 troops, with the army making up the bulk of it. The Joint Forces Operation, which runs operations along a 400-kilometer line of control in the eastern Donetsk and Luhansk regions, is estimated to have between 30,000 and 35,000 troops. However, much of the weaponry and equipment remains outdated, with a large number of old vehicles or old technology. The Air Force is a small fleet of old Soviet helicopters and fighter jets whose effectiveness is questionable, and likely to be wiped out quickly in the event of a new, major Russian attack, experts say. Russia has learned a lot. Russia has learned a lot from their operations in Syria. They are continuing to reform their military. Ukraine has learned a lot, but the advantage is still very much in Russia's favor. Ukraine's purchase of the Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2 drone, which played a key role in last year's Nagorno-Karabakh conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia, has attracted the attention of Russian forces, although it is unlikely they will play a decisive role. Kyiv has acquired 12 so far, and dozens more are reportedly on order. It depends on what you mean by survive. If the Ukrainian intent refuses, then probably very little or nothing. If Ukraine's intentions continue to struggle as an organized force, then it may be days or weeks. Ukrainian troops are substantially increased, not least because their situation in 2014 was so dire that it doesn't take too much to upgrade a little. Their strength is combat experience, morale, and some modernization of weapons, including from abroad. Their weak side appears to be organization, loss of key personnel, and significant weaknesses in certain types of weaponry such as air defense, electronic warfare and combat aircraft. Open source reporting, including satellite imagery, indicates that Russia is deploying equipment and weaponry that would allow an onslaught if orders were given. For example, unconfirmed reports have documented trench-digging trucks being spotted in a carriage heading towards the Ukrainian border, and a Buk-1 anti-aircraft missile system has also been spotted. While the RAND report hypothesizes Russia's theoretical advance to the eastern bank of the Dnieper River near the Dnipro in a matter of days, other reports suggest a Russian invasion would be so massive that the capital, Kyiv, would be captured in a matter of hours. If Russia sets that as a goal. If you look at it from a Ukrainian point of view, it depends on how many troops Russia has gathered, and which areas it is operating in. Short-range air defense systems, anti-tank guided missiles, anything that can slow down Russia's attack speed, such a weapon would be very useful. Does Ukraine have the military capability to stop a full-blown invasion? There are only a few countries in the world that can stop the onslaught of the Russian army. In case of an invasion, Ukraine needs to mobilize as many reserves as possible, so that it does not become an easy path for Russia. In that case, it will be a long and bloody conflict. The tremendous power amassed by the Russians, designed to suppress the victim. It is designed in such a way as to destroy the Ukrainian military. It looks like there won't be anything left to chance, so Ukraine can collect anything later. It should be overwhelming and devastating. Russia might also halt a full-scale invasion, and aim for limited gains, experts say, for example, to find a solution to the water problem in Crimea, whose fresh water supply was cut off by Ukraine within months of its capture by Russia. Russia in March 2014. Although Russia has built a $3.7 billion bridge connecting the peninsula to mainland Russia, water supply is a major problem. Smaller Russian forces could seize swathes of Ukrainian territory along the Sea of Azov, including the main port city of Mariupol, create a land bridge to Crimea, and allow water to be channeled to the peninsula. A more limited offensive may also be aimed at forcing Kyiv to implement the 2015 peace plan for the Donbas on Russian terms. And while hardly anyone expects the Ukrainian military to withstand a full-fledged Russian attack, Ukrainian officials have suggested that a determined partisan resistance might form depending on where and how the attack takes place. Then things might develop into a protracted guerrilla war that would be very painful for both sides.